I'm Stacy Pingree, founder of Radiant Financial Group and this Legacy Wealth Builders podcast. The reason we put this podcast together is that I am super passionate about sharing the stories of my friends, colleagues, clients, partners. I love to share their stories about legacy wealth building. It's my passion. I mean, I love people. I love legacy wealth. I love real estate wealth. And so when we tell these stories, the passion behind this or the heart behind this is really that we are excited about not, to me, legacy is not what you leave behind for someone, but it's what you leave within someone, right? So these stories are something that we share to leave you with an example of how to go do a lot of what these people do on your own. So today, I'm so excited to introduce a guest that is super close to me. She is not only a friend, she's a colleague and partner that I work with. I met Andrea Estrada. Hi, Andrea.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I met Andrea Estrada in 2019. You came down from the Northwest Washington, Oregon border area. And bought a condo, right? Bought a condo down here. I decided to move down, and then you needed property management to manage your condo. And my mother-in-law actually introduced us, right?
Yep.
Okay. And we were growing. Radiant was growing, and you and I just met. And I don't even remember, we met, we hit it off, and I think you started the next day.
Yeah, it did go that fast.
Yeah, so we obviously like each other, and we don't have any problem sitting here talking for 20 minutes about all these things. But what I'm so impressed by about you, and what I'd love for you to tell your story, is that Andrea is, I think it shocked you when you looked at, you said we finally put your REO scheduled together, and you looked down, and she's a single mom that built on a fixed salary all through your, while your boys were growing up, of twin boys, which you have to tell a lot about that too, because that's also crazy. But you built a $2.2 million real estate portfolio over this last whatever decade. Has it been longer than a decade?
Since 2011.
2011. Okay, so
13 years.
And it's incredible. I think it's just an incredible story. It's probably going to be one of my favorites of any of the shows because it's real grit. And so with that, I would just love to turn it over to you and have you talk a little bit about how you got started.
Yeah. So my driver is really houses.
Yeah.
In 1998, I was an executive assistant for Hilton Hotels Corporation at their corporate office. And we went through a merger, and they offered me a job 40 minutes away from the office where I worked, or they offered me a really nice severance package. And they said, hey, you can take your money. We're going to pay you for 7 months and go do something else. So I took that option, and I did some serious soul searching. And I thought to myself, what could I do every single day that I would love that wouldn't feel like work?
Yeah.
I want to go look at all the houses. I love looking at houses. That's what I want to do.
I know this.
I know.
So we're going to get into
we're
going to get into your obsession and your curiosity here after you tell your story.
Yeah. So that's what I decided. I decided, you know what? I'm going to go get a real estate license. I've got 6 months to get myself up and going. I did not know a single real estate agent. I knew nothing about it. Got my license. I went to this brokerage. I interviewed a few different brokerages, and I went to this mom and pop brokerage. And in my first month as a real estate agent, I put 7 transactions in escrow. Now, mind you,
why aren't you training all of our real estate agents?
Mind you, I had no baseline for what real estate agents did. I didn't know what was normal, what wasn't normal.
Right.
Do they sell 20 a month? Is 7 really good? Because my broker's over here cheering me on, trying to advertise. Can't believe it. And I'm like, yeah, you're just trying to make me feel good.
Yeah.
But it's because I wanted to go see them all. I wanted to look at all the houses. I'm like, you want to go see 15 houses? Yes, I will show you 15 houses.
I didn't realize that was your first month.
Yeah, my first month.
That's hilarious.
So I did that until I got pregnant with twins.
Okay.
As a single mom. That was in 2005. And you really can't show houses on Saturdays and weekends when you've got 2 infants in tote. So it was time to go into the corporate world. So I went into the corporate world and took a job there. But I mean, that was my love for houses. It was still embedded in me. I just had to take a few years off and work a 9 to 5 and get these kids, where they needed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I met my husband in 2010. And then I had a little more freedom.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I got married. Let's go buy some houses. So we started buying.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think that, I mean, it's funny because that real estate experience, so you are now a very successful mortgage originator with me. We work together, right? And
Yes.
I think every day I think what an awesome background value that has been, right, for our clients, investors, and our employees too.
Yeah.
For you to have such a knowledge about houses. But just so everybody knows here, whenever we have like a strange situation, we have to do some digging, and it's something to do with the real estate or the values or the appraisal or whatever. You're the go-to. You're the one who has the expertise. You know about, you know how to add that extra layer. We were just talking about it before this, that of the real estate expertise, which I think,
Yeah.
how do you think that lends to what you do?
A lot. So I'll tell you, I mean, we do a lot of loans together.
Yeah.
And I am the one that you say, hey, do you remember so-and-so? No. What house did they buy? I remember what house they bought. And I look up every single house of our clients because that's how I can connect with them and what they're doing and see what it is that they're in love with.
Yeah.
And once you draw me into what you're trying to do and I see where it's going, I'm like, I'm your cheerleader. I'm going to make sure we get there. You're getting this house. I love it as much as you do. That's what keeps everything going.
Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
your experience in that has been invaluable to me and our team and our our clients. So my big question is, tell me how a single mom living on that fixed income. So now you're in corporate America,
Yep.
but how do you said you meet George and you start your life together, but how do you amass $2.2 million in property? Because that's
Good question.
Yeah.
Good question.
You're like, I have no idea.
It was just one piece at a time. You know, I had $14,000 in my 401k in my corporate job. And I was watching it increase like $100 a month,
Ugh,
sometimes
painful.
lose $100 in a month. But I could draw it. And I said, okay, it's time to buy a house. This will be my first house. So I'm going to buy this house.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had to make sacrifices. We bought a house that was built in 1943 that we still own to this day that has the tiniest bedrooms in the world. I had to give up my inherited bedroom set from my grandmother so we could move into this house.
Oh my gosh.
But we bought it. So we did that. We were in there for about a year. And then we bought and sold a car. We saved a little bit of money. All of a sudden, we had $20,000 saved. So let's go buy another house. So that got us our first investment. And mind you, the investment homes then, it's a small 800 square foot house. It was $100,000.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a big one, but it was a start.
Yep.
So we bought that one. And then every time we continued to have just the tiniest little nest egg, I wanted that for the next house.
Yeah.
And honestly, for us, it was about moving into these houses.
Yeah.
You know, we bought the house across the street when it came up for sale as our primary. We said, we're moving across the street. And we took the kids and moved across the street. Then we sold that one. And 2 years later, bought another one that we moved the kids into. These kids will tell you we have moved at least 7 times in the last 10 years. But for them, it wasn't an issue. They were so excited. You know, where are we going next? You know, what's the next one going to be? And I realized after a while, it's not really about the walls of the home. It's the things inside of it.
Yeah.
You know, we still have the same Christmas decorations. We have the same photos on the wall. They have the same toys. They go to the same school. You know, we didn't make huge moves where they would have to change schools. So it wasn't a big change for them to move into another house, but it was the easiest way for us to keep collecting houses.
Yeah.
And for somebody who loves the houses, there was something new and exciting about each one we bought. Oh, I love this one because it has this. And I loved that one because it had that. And
well, yeah, your nostalgia comes from like the little uniqueness of each house. And
yes.
What you remember, you probably had a Christmas at this house and another Christmas at the next house or whatever, but like you remember those little differences in those houses. I totally relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it did, there was something about it. When we moved to Arizona in 2019, the boys were 14 years old, and they were so excited to have a pool.
Yeah.
They didn't care about anything else.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have a pool in our backyard.
I mean, never had a pool in the Northwest, right? Then that's not the
No.
common thing. You had a condo down here before that, though. So you
Yes.
branched out and did like a second home. Were you spending time? Because I feel like
Yeah,
with
let
McCormick-
me explain
Yeah.
that. So the condo that your mother-in-law managed for me, which I found her off of Google because they had great reviews, and her and I connected so well.
PPG Property Management.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely loved her. When I left my corporate job and went into mortgage, they cashed out my 401k. So then I had the choice to take the rest of the money that was in my corporate job, which wasn't much, mind you. This condo was $38,000.
Oh my gosh.
But it was completely trashed, like mold. It needed everything. New windows, new doors, new flooring, new kitchen cabinets, new shower pan, completely redone.
So you had to buy it with cash.
I bought it cash.
Yeah.
And then I had to have the money to clean it up and redo it. But, it's a 1-bedroom condo.
Yeah.
It wasn't expensive. To redo the whole thing was about $15,000.
Yeah.
So I'm into it $55,000.
Yeah.
But that's where I got the money to buy that one cash once I cashed out my 401k. So again, here I come across this little chunk of change and I try and figure out, how can I use this to buy the next one? How can I do it?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we bought that and we rented it. That was in 2016. I still have it. It's still paid off. It's still rented. And now the value is $164,000 today.
Okay, so let me get it straight. So it's rented for, at the time you got it, what did it rent for? I'm just curious.
Like $800 a month.
Okay, so what's it renting for now?
$1,200 a month.
Okay, so it came up, the rents have all come up obviously, and that was 2014?
2016.
16. And then now your value on it, you've got appreciation, and it's free and clear.
Free
and you've
and
got
clear.
appreciation on it of like triple basically, or two
More
times.
than double.
Yeah, more 2 times itself.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, real estate.
So I
Exciting.
was so happy with that anytime another unit came up in that complex, I could buy it as an investment. I mean, these are $100,000 condos.
Yeah.
So once again, I come into $20,000. I've saved it, got a tax return. Who knows what it was?
Yeah.
I've come up with $20,000. So I actually bought 2 more in there, and my mom bought one. So now we own 4 condos in that complex that are all rented, and they've all appreciated in value. But it was really just every time I had some extra money in my pocket, I tried to figure out how I could use it to buy the next house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. I love this when you're talking to a first-time home buyer and I'm listening to you tell them a story about, or you're giving them advice really, or guiding them in the process of what to expect and how to be prepared. And you never ever just glaze over the fact that you need to you may need to sacrifice. You may need to just save up this much money or get a gift for this much, figure out a way. But I love what you say, which is about you have to want it.
Yes.
So I'm kind of guiding you to that quote because I love that. Tell that a little bit about that story. I think that's so true about.
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially you can make somebody do anything.
Yeah.
But you can't make them want it.
Yeah.
And if they want it, they will make the sacrifices for it. And that want could be, there's a specific house that they want. They just want to have real estate. They want money. Whatever that desire is, desire will lead us anywhere we want to go. Sometimes the wrong way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I may desire a car that I can't afford. But
you do have a love for cars.
Yes.
We should dive into that not on this show.
But desire will get you there. And I do tell people, first-time home buyers, you're going to make sacrifices, but this is not your lifelong home. If this is your first house, you're probably going to have needs that change.
Yeah.
Don't buy a house for a solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
You have 2-year-old kids, so you can't have a 2-story house, or you've got kids in elementary school, so you don't want to move outside of this district. Just remember, that's a temporary problem. That's not a permanent. They're only going to be 2 for a few years. Yeah. They're only going to be in elementary school for a few years. So you've got to look beyond that and be willing to make some sacrifices. Might be a little more difficult in the interim, but in the end, it would be worthwhile to get you where you want to go.
Yeah. And I think part of that, I think part of the struggle is what I hear in your story is, the kids they looked at everything as a new adventure. I mean, we get so hung up in, not wanting to have anybody suffer in anything. I mean, the biggest growth parts of my life have been like through the suffering, right? I mean, it hurts and it's painful while it's going on, or it might be just like not as comfortable, but those are the growing times that you look back on and go like, oh yeah, I guess losing everything really did suck. But, I was able to build on that and use that as a catapult into, a grind or grit, So, I love that too. Yeah, absolutely. Working at, well, no, we talked about, you'd mentioned earlier about, the process, the houses that you bought, but I mean, it isn't always pretty too, right? You run into some issues where, you might have a bad tenant, you know. How did you kind of work around, what have been some of the biggest learning experience, I guess, that you've had?
So, I mean, for starters, getting into investing, again, I had to make sacrifices. I couldn't buy a house in the most premier neighborhood at top dollar. I had to buy what I could afford, which aren't always in the good neighborhoods, which means you also don't always get the good tenants. That's where I also learned how valuable property management is, because my very first rental, I managed it on my own. And we went through a full sheriff's eviction. Man. We had to go to the house, unload all of her stuff to the curb. They brought the biggest drop box from Waste Management that we could have, and we hauled off 3 tons of garbage.
Oh my gosh.
We had to redo the entire house, literally rebuild the stairs to the basement, all the sheetrock, drywall, flooring, paint, kitchen cabinets, all new appliances. I mean, it was a chunk of money.
Were you scared, devastated? I mean,
I wasn't devastated because I knew that was the risk, and I knew it could happen. I didn't realize at the time it doesn't happen that often. That's the only time that's happened, and I've been a landlord for 13 years. I kind of felt like, you know what, you knew that this could happen, and it did. So you're not surprised. Where do we go from here? So we pooled together. My husband and I emptied our savings accounts out and redid this house and sold it. We decided, look, we have so much equity in this house now that we need to get into a better neighborhood where we can get better tenants.
So that was a very strategic kind of, move on selling, because, you try to hold as much as you can, but sometimes you're just like, this is not the spot.
It's not the spot. Yeah, we would have seen the same tenants in that neighborhood, and, which was fine for our first investment. That's what we had to do to grow our money. But we had grown our money enough, it had doubled in 3 years. So when we sold that house to exchange it for our next house, I had $743 to my name 2 days before closing. And I owned 3 houses, and all those mortgages were due, but we couldn't recoup our money out of that house until it closed, which I knew it would close. I felt confident, but, there's always that risk. What if it doesn't? What if, now what? But we did. So we actually took that money and exchanged it for a condo in Scottsdale. So we went from the ghetto in the Pacific Northwest to a condo in Scottsdale.
Gainey Ranch, or was it?
It was in McCormick
Ranch. Okay, McCormick Ranch,
where we were able to buy it free and clear.
Okay.
And we made that an Airbnb. So we did Airbnb that for a couple of years. And then we've exchanged that one again. But I mean, that's the ugly side of it, is you have to realize this can happen. And since then, I will never manage one of my own properties again. I got really lucky in that I had the correct forms filled out. We had done the property inspections. I know how much it should have cost the tenant. The fact is, even if you get a judgment against a tenant, good luck collecting it. A lot of these people move from job to job, and you can't figure out how to garnish their wages, so you're not going to get it. And all of that would have been discovered if I had a property management company that had vetted her out up front, done a background check, done all the things that they do that you can't really do on your own. So that was,
and once the damage is done, the damage is done. I mean, it's like you said, I love the problem solver mentality. Like, okay, listen, I could sit here and take somebody to. I had a similar situation here with one of my first properties. I lived in it first, and I did the classic, roll up. I just kept moving, didn't have any kids yet, and I lived in one, and I let these kids, 21-year-old kids, move in because I didn't have a property manager. I was doing it myself, and the mom even co-signed. Their
Yeah.
mom even co-signed, and I'll never forget calling the mom and being like, "Shame on you." and
Right.
I was probably like 32 or something at the time, and I was like, "Shame on you." I mean, these kids have destroyed my house, you know, like
Yeah.
destroyed this house, and I'm coming after you too, you know. I think at the end of the day, I think she ended up paying for some of the damage just to not have the judgment. But, you know, nobody with property management, they go check the house every 6 months.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be scared. You don't have to be scared of it now. I think that was my lesson too. I think you go through
Yeah.
one of those.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
Okay,
and
lesson learned.
And they didn't destroy it like your house. But I mean, they had a dog they weren't supposed to have, and he chewed through some wires on the AC outside, and the carpet had to be replaced, and the walls they were just boys, so they were dirty and hard on everything, you know. And I
Yeah.
was like, it was my sweet little, like one of my first little, I think my second house ever.
Yeah.
You know, and so I took it personally.
Yeah. It
You know, you
hurts,
take it
especially
personally.
when you lived in it.
Yeah.
You're like, this was my house
Yep.
that I loved.
Yep.
My heart and soul and memories are here, and
Exactly.
you did it to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You broke it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. I also learned the hard way. You know, when you try to manage the property on your own and you try to do the right thing, you call the previous landlord. I had a case, I did that. I called the previous landlord, and it occurred to me afterwards, if they're not good tenants, of course the landlord's going to give you a great review
Yeah.
because they want them out.
Oh, they're fantastic. They'll move in
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah. So you can't call the last landlord. You have to call the landlord before that landlord if you
Yeah.
want the real story, because
Yeah.
this one's trying to get them out of the house. So
Yeah.
yeah, some lessons learned. But
So, you know, by way of legacy. So I think you were really kind of surprised when you saw that you had $2.2 million in value. I mean,
Shocked.
you were like, stop. So we created this REO planner scheduling tool, right? And so it really helps you to get a visual on, because most of our investors that we even work with, I mean, they know what they have, but when we create this spreadsheet for them, they look at it and they're like, even when we put our future casting into it, and we say, hey, here's what you're going to buy a house every other year or whatever for the next 5 years, and they see what that looks like after 15 years of appreciation and cash flow, and they've paid the mortgage down and all these things, if that's what they want, right? If that's what they want, then we give them a vision for how to do it. And I think with you, when you sat down to do this, it was so funny because she literally emailed me and said, is this right? Will you take a look at it? This can't be right. And I was like, yeah, no, it's right. You have this much in equity and this much in, you know, in actual real estate value. And I think, congratulations. Like, right.
Thank
It's so
you.
exciting. I mean, this is the whole idea. So, I mean, are your boys interested? So back to legacy. I mean, are your boys interested at all in real estate? Have you given them like a bug for real estate? I mean, you know, what do you feel? Do they have any interest at this point? I know.
Well, I don't think they intend to make a career out of it.
Yeah.
They both have their career goals.
Yeah.
But I've kind of ingrained in them that you don't rent a house.
Yeah.
You don't rent an apartment. The minute that you do that, when you leave my house, you're going to have a hard time saving the money to go buy a house down the road.
Yeah.
So ideally, stay with me
Yeah.
until you've saved enough money to buy a house so that you can get a house and then make that a rental and buy another one. So they know how to do it.
Yep.
And I hope that I've instilled that in them. I mean, they're 19 years old now, so it's really up to them if
Yeah.
they want to pack up and move out. So far, they're with me, and we're all happy. Nobody
Yeah.
hates anybody,
Yeah.
so they can stay as long as they want. One of them is in the military, so he's got a VA eligibility coming up in a couple of years, and if I can just hold on to him until then, he's guaranteed that he'll be able to get in a house. But they do understand how important it is to figure out how to buy a house before you get stuck in renting in a perpetual cycle that you can't get out of.
Yeah.
So I do think that they'll do that.
And with rents as crazy as they are, I mean, it is insane. I mean, you and I deal with it all the time with buyers right now, where they're coming in spending $2,500 or $2,800 or $3,200 a month to rent. And you're like, how are you saving? I mean, I know that affordability is an issue right now. We're in, you know, whatever, February of 2025 right now. But I mean, rates are still in the high sixes, but you know, sacrifice.
Yeah.
Get in now because appreciation works over time, you know, and
well, and that's the issue is if you are paying $2,300, $2,400 a month for rent, it's virtually impossible to save that money.
Yeah.
And if you try to wait it out until these rates come down, now not only do you need your down payment, but you need your bidding money to be able to fight for your offer to be accepted.
Yeah.
So
we've seen it. We've seen
it's
it.
hard.
It's
really hard.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the big thing now is that that piece of it, getting people to just see I mean, that's always the case. I mean, I think what I love about your story is, well, the grit, right? Because to me, there were choices. You had choices. It may have been cheaper or easier to just rent, and whatever. I mean, do whatever you were going to do with your extra money, but you made those choices along the way, and look now.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, if I look back when I made those choices, it wasn't about instant cash flow.
Yeah.
And for somebody who was on a salary that made $54,000 a year, and I had these little boys, my first rental actually cost me $175 a month. There was no cash flow coming out of that. But I knew that long term it would increase in value and the rent would increase. And I could afford the $175 a month.
Yeah.
Not much more than that.
Yeah.
But I could. I didn't know that it would appreciate as quickly as it did. It doubled in value. I think that was in like maybe 2014.
Okay. Wow.
And
that was up north?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
and it doubled in value in a year. So I paid like $99,000 for it. When I sold it, we sold it for $220,000. And that gave me the money to go buy what I wanted in Scottsdale. But it wasn't always hey, I'm going to buy a rental and I'm going to have an instant cash flow and I'm going to have money in my pocket. It's a long-term plan. It might cost me a little bit up front, but I know eventually it will recoup and it'll equal out. And when I filled out that REO sheet, I think this is what threw me off. The spreadsheet where you put in, here's what I paid, here's what I owe, blah, blah, blah. You, in your mind, you're always ingrained with what you paid, right?
Yeah.
This is what I paid for that house. That's an easy number to never forget.
Yeah.
You know what you paid for it.
Yep.
But how often do you go back when you have 7 houses and see what they're worth?
Right.
And that's why, because in my brain, I'm adding up, okay, 200, 300, 400, 500, and you forget about the equity gain.
Yeah.
I mean, the equity gain is $1.1 million over 13 years.
It's like the silent magic. You know what I mean? It's like the silent, it's just going on while you're doing whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's so cool. So that's truly the long-term goal. Even if you're not making any cash, if you're negative cash flow for the first couple of years, where else are you going to gain $1.1 million in 13 years?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to get it from the stock market that quickly or a 401k or a retirement account. That's the only place that you can come up with that much of a gain that quickly.
Well, and you still have, you talked about free and clear condos, but you still have, the properties you bought in the last 5 years here, you have mortgages on them and they're not all beautiful interest rates, but you've been like, oh, well, I'm going to do what I'm going to do because I know the history of how this works and I will refinance them. And I know now after looking at your spreadsheet too, that not only are you positive cash flow, so everybody else is paying off your mortgage, all these tenants are paying off your mortgages, your positive cash flow, but that's after you take into consideration your primary payment.
Yes.
So basically you still have a couple $1,000s in cash flow after your home mortgage payment's paid. So
yeah,
it's
all my expenses are paid.
Yeah.
And I sat down and really did some deep math because once again, I'm building that little nest egg for the next house.
Yeah, I know.
And I looked at it and I was like, maybe I should take this money and pay one of these off instead because that would increase my cash flow. But it still didn't make sense. No matter which property I applied that money to or what I paid off, in the long run, it makes more sense for me to buy another house and rent out the one that I have. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the plan. I just got to kick the kids out so that we can move into a smaller home.
Yeah. Well, and I think timing in the market from where, again, where we are right now, I mean, it's coming up to great opportunities and seeing a lot of opportunity rise up right now in this business. So maybe by the time this airs, it's going to be like mayhem again. You never know. So, but again, it cycles. So whenever this airs, it won't matter because at some point it'll be great again. You'll have the cycles of real estate. Yeah. I love this. I think this has been so informational. For me, the takeaway with you is absolutely 100% that grit is a marathon, not a sprint. That's the idea behind it. I mean, you really put in the work in the beginning and you said, but your actual quote, the thing here that is really resonates with me is that you have to want it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you can teach that to, I can't want it for anybody else. I'm so glad you wanted it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted it for us too, and my family. But what's next for you? Do you think, so you're going to buy one more house?
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. Cause we're in a 2-story larger house right now with the boys. But when they leave, I'm going to get old. I don't want those stairs someday. And I don't need all that space someday. And I looked at both options. If I sell the house and buy another house, what would my monthly payment be? If I keep the house and rent it out and apply that towards my next house, what would my monthly payment equate to? And it still makes more sense to rent it out. Yeah. So, so I'll get something single level. I'm still stuck on a pool.
She wants horse property.
I would love to have some animals. Yeah. Stacy knows that my driver in life are houses and animals. Yes. So if I can have them both on one place, I'm a happy girl.
Yep. Yeah. I don't think we can be, and we'll do that for the retirement era, because these animals that you want to take a lot of work, and I still need you to help me.
Well, I need to earn some money so that I can pay someone to come take care of all these animals.
Yes, exactly. Which you could do.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
I could do. Yeah.
So anyway, I thank you so much for being here. I am so proud to call you a partner in my business, and I love having you with me every day. We couldn't do it. You're an asset to everyone in the company, not just me, and all of our clients and all of our partners. So I love you, and I'm so glad you're here. And thank you guys so much for joining us today. I hope you got out of this exactly what you're supposed to, because Andrea has like huge nuggets in this one about grit and focus and staying determined and just driving for what you want. So thank you. We'll see you again on the next podcast.